As they go into the down peak hour sport, it is time we talk about the Rabbitohs. We have to talk about the Rabbitohs. This is a team right now that is in a real sticky situation, I would say, where, there's so many things that I've spoken about in the past, and we'll speak about again today, but there's so many things that go into this club that make it quite a confusing club overall. It makes it really difficult for the fans to understand where their team is at, kind of what their team is, and what they should be expecting from the team. I would say that this is the most perplexing team in the entirety of the NRL. And I guess that kind of comes with it when they're the longest running team. They've been around since 1908. Yes, I know Roosters fans, before you come out and circle jerk at the fact that they got kicked out for a year. The point of the matter is that this team has been around since 1908, right? So with such a long-standing tenure, you're always going to have a really perplexing fan base that don't necessarily know what to expect because the past happened, but also that was the past, not the now. Obviously, the Rabbitohs last season were really, really odd. Like, really odd. I predicted them to go and win the comp before the season started. I was one of the ones that said, I think this Rabbitohs team is phenomenal, and they do have the talent there. But, it goes to round 11, they're top of the table, and you're thinking, okay, you're chirping, you're thinking, yeah, oh, look, now we're talking, we're actually going to win the comp. And then they finish outside of the 8, and you're just like, well, what happened here? It's such a confusing situation, because how does a team drop off as significantly as they did? Now, I will say to you, and we'll really get into this in today's video, but the Rabbitohs and the Broncos have a lot in common for the opposite part of the spectrum. They're the same, but on the opposite sides. And I think that could actually give us quite a large reasoning as to why the Rabbitohs did have such a fall off last season, or maybe we should have expected it to happen based off of what I'm about to tell you. But, just to start off here, the reason why I say throughout all these years that it's such a confusing club is because, and I mentioned this the other day, the Rabbitohs have won one premiership in 60-odd years, right? 50, 60 years, whatever it is. And that was in 2014, and that was phenomenal. But for the entirety of the time that I was growing up, like the late 90s, early 2000s, mid-2000s, they were awful. They were the West Tigers of now, right? They were the Knights of the 2010s. They were awful when I was growing up. So I always used to think of them as the team that were the easy beats, right, when I was a young kid. And that was the truth. It was like that. But we all know that they've also won 21 premierships, which majority of them coming in the 1910s, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, right? Majority of them coming when the competition was much smaller. I'm not going to say the talent level was less, but with that being said, obviously, things improve over time as well, right? So the majority of the premierships that the Rabbitohs have won came a very, very long time ago, which has set the fan base up for unrealistic expectations year in, year out, right? It set the expectations for the Rabbitohs to be this dominating team, like we've seen with the Sydney Roosters the last 20 years, the Melbourne Storm the last 20 years, the Brisbane Broncos until 2006. These clubs had valid reasons based off of recent success that really proved that they were the dominant team of that time. Whilst the Rabbitohs, because of the number next to their premierships, despite coming a long time ago, it has given this kind of thought process that they are, and I don't want to disrespect Rabbitohs by saying this, but they are bigger than they are currently, right? The numbers next to it give their fan base an ideology that they're better than kind of what they are. I just want to clarify here as well, I'm not here to insult Rabbitohs. This video is not here to put you down or to insult you. It's just kind of giving you my perspective and my opinion based off of what's happening. I'm not a Rabbitohs fan, I'm a Titans fan, right? There's enough problems in my club. We spoke about it in the video the other day. Don't worry, you can insult the Titans all you like in the comment section, but that's not what this video is for. This video is not to insult you. Right, but let's go over the last couple of years, okay? So we've gone over why I believe the expectations are a little bit too high. Plus also, Wayne Bennett did get the Rabbitohs into a very competitive state for a few years. They didn't win the grand final, but they were very competitive there, right? So I guess it kind of can be justified, but this thought process has been around for quite some time, which is why I still mentioned it. Now, the Rabbitohs last year obviously came 9th. Right, and they were first for the first 11 rounds. They were dominating teams left, right, and centre, and they had a really solid team. You go and have a look at the lineup, and the lineup pretty much hasn't changed. It hasn't really changed at all since Wayne Bennett's days, right? It really hasn't, besides one player that I'll mention in a second, right? But the predicted round 1 team for this year is Latrell Mitchell, same. Alex Johnson and Tyrone Munro on the wings. Munro, obviously, fresh young talent. They've got Isaiah Tass and Campbell Graham, pretty much the same. Cody Will, besides Dane Gagai for the Wayne Bennett era, which is a big thing as well, I guess, because Dane Gagai is such an underrated player, mind you. Cody Walker and Lachlan Elliott in the halves. The only one missing there is Adam Reynolds. The hooker, Damien Cook, same. Your front row was a Tavita Totola and Sean Kepi. I think that doesn't really evoke a great deal of, scare factor, in my personal opinion. But with that being said, I guess that's changed a little bit. You've got Keon Kolomatangi and Jair in the back row. Not much different there. Cameron Murray in the 13. And in the bench, Silva Havili, Tom Burgess, Davin Moali, and Tallis Duncan. Now, obviously, this year you include Jack Whiten, which doesn't prove it. We'll get to that, right? But I think for me, let's go and have a look. So in 2021, the Rabbitohs finished 3rd place and ended up getting into the grand final. This was with Wayne Bennett, and this was with Adam Reynolds, who obviously has gone to the Broncos. Now, in the exact same year, when the Broncos did not have Adam Reynolds, they finished in 14th position with a minus 249 points differential. They won 7 games and lost 17. Right, so this is without their key playmaker in Adam Reynolds. And the Rabbitohs, like I said, they won 20 games and lost 4. And came 3rd and ended up getting into the grand final where they only just lost to the Penrith Panthers. We moved that into 2022, right? Now, this is the first year that JasonDemetrio is now the coach of the Rabbitohs. Wayne Bennett has gone, and Adam Reynolds has also gone as well. You've seen Demetrio really implement Lachlan Ilias, the guy that he believes in, into the team in this year. And it was a bit of a struggle, but they still made the top 8. But they did drop off from 3rd to 7th. And they didn't exactly do great, but with that being said, I think they got to the preliminary final and lost that year against the Panthers. But it wasn't... It was a year that you kind of still correlated with the year beforehand, right? It was still the changing of the guard at the Rabbitohs, and although they finished in 7th position, they were still only 2 wins out of the top 4, but although they finished in 7th position, you still thought that this was the same team that was Wayne Bennett's team. It was still Wayne Bennett's team. They had no Reynolds, still made the 8, but you could see there was a difference in how they were playing, right? And then you've got the Broncos, who went from 14th to 9th, and were actually in the top 4 for the most part of that season. And we all know how that finished, right? And that's exactly what happened with the Rabbitohs this year. Fun fact for you, right? So the Broncos got into the top 4 and then fell off to 9th, but still had an improved season with Reynolds at the helm, right? So you're seeing the Rabbitohs and the Broncos kind of get closer there. They're only 2 spots separate and only 2 points difference, despite the 20-win season for the Rabbitohs the year beforehand and the 7-win season for the Broncos beforehand. It turns to the Broncos 13 wins, Rabbitohs 14 wins. Right, so you're starting to see it. So now you're starting to kind of understand that these two clubs are very similar. And then we'll go into 2023. Last season, the Rabbitohs obviously finished in 9th. So they've dropped completely out of the 8. And we all know what I was just saying about they're in the top 4 and then they fell apart. Kind of the exact same season in a way, just a lot. It happened quicker. Happened at the midpoint rather than the late point for the Rabbitohs. But they fell to 9th and had a 12-win season, 12 losses. So a 500 record. And then you compare that to the Broncos, who then had a 18-win season and 6 losses. So it's completely shifted around there. Completely shifted around, where now the Broncos, with Adam Reynolds, have completely revolutionised their club and have gotten back into the frame and got into the grand final. Whilst the Rabbitohs, after losing their key player and their coach, have completely dropped off. So to kind of summarise what I'm really referring to here is that there is something that you can really directly look at and say, this is probably the reason. Like, this is a big part of the reason. Because before any Rabbitohs fans say, or any fans say in general, injuries, screwed us, which is technically true, injuries happen to everyone, right? Injuries happen to every single team. The Bulldogs got absolutely smashed with it last year. The Titans got absolutely smashed with it last year. A lot of teams get smashed with injuries, and you see, even the one team that doesn't usually have many injuries is the Panthers, right? And that's why you usually say the team with the least injuries is more than likely going to be the one that wins the comp, right? Even the Panthers have got great players anyway, but that's not the point. Point is, the least injuries that you have, the better chance that you have to win the comp. It's pretty simple, or it should be simple, right? But the point is that with Adam Reynolds leaving the club, and with Adam Reynolds coming to the Broncos, you've seen the Rabbitohs here, the Broncos here, now it's like this, right? So is it Adam Reynolds? Is it because Lachlan Ilias isn't getting the same kind of production? And you'd say, yeah, look, absolutely. Lachlan Ilias is not Adam Reynolds. It's getting to a point now where he's at a very similar point with what I believe Tanner Boyd is at for my Gold Coast Titans, where they need to prove themselves in the first 5 to 6 rounds of this season. Otherwise, it's going to get really testy. And I love Boyd Tan. He knows that. But I also have to be honest with you and say that if these two guys don't get the job done in the first 5 to 8 rounds, you've got to start thinking about kind of what the future may look like without them. And Lachlan Ilias would be the key one there, because he's got such a direct kind of relation with Adam Reynolds, where as soon as the really primo elite halfback is gone, and then you've come in as the young lad, unfortunately, the results have completely disappeared, and people are really questioning Lachlan Ilias. So he's got a direct relation to an elite halfback that got the job done, which is unfortunate for him. But with that being said, needs to really motivate and get through that. You know, it's just, otherwise his time will be done there. Right, so he's at a really big crossroads. But I think that the halfback situation is real proof that the halfback is the most important position on the field. You can look at the hooker, but the halfback is the most important position, because if you don't have an elite halfback, you're probably not going to go too far. Now, another part of the puzzle, I would say, is, look, you can say that, no, Reno doesn't have any correlation. The Rabbitohs have just, unfortunately, had a few tough years with injuries. Latrell Mitchell, obviously, last year and whatnot, and the team has just kind of suffered a little bit because of that. I don't think it's Lachlan Ilias. I would personally disagree with you slightly. But the big thing here as well is JasonDemetrio, because it's the exact same correlation between Lachlan Ilias and Adam Reynolds as JasonDemetrio and Wayne Bennett. Wayne Bennett is elite. You could argue he's the #1 coach of all time. Right? And JasonDemetrio, the understudy, has come in. And as soon as he's come in, it's gone from bad to worse. Right? And it's not like the team is a completely different team besides Ilias and besides a couple of nitpicky positions here and there. Right, and they've actually improved their team this year with Jack Whiten and getting a couple of players here and there, Sean Kepi from Manly and the likes. So, if they don't do it this year, if they struggle again this year, you have to look at JasonDemetrio. You have to do it. Like, I know that some Rabbitohs fans have already been starting to look around and think, oh yeah, maybe this is JasonDemetrio. But with you're adding in an Origin representative in Jack Whiten. Let's assume Latrell Mitchell is healthy, Cody Walker is healthy, is getting on in age now, however. You know, let's assume that Lachlan Ilias, who is JasonDemetrio's real product, is the guy there, and Damien Cook is obviously their 9, who has been an Origin representative in the past, is still kind of an Origin representative, but they're kind of going elsewhere as well. The point of the matter is that this team does not have any excuses this year. No excuses. So if this year continues down the same trajectory that we've been seeing the Rabbitohs on, then it has to come down JasonDemetrio's head. And it has to be that he's not getting the best out of this team. Maybe he is like, I'm sorry that I always, translate and go back to the Titans and whatnot, but that is my team, right? So I know a lot about it. Justin Holbrook was like a mates coach, right? Where he was like mates with the players. And although I love Justin, he was a great bloke, that didn't necessarily translate to the results that we probably we do feel like we deserved. We feel like we're a better team than what we were under Holbrook, right? So that's why we've moved on to Desi Hasler. So I think that maybe that could be the JasonDemetrio effect there as well. And that he's inherited a great team that was significantly competitive, but hasn't been able to get him to that level because the players don't believe in him as much as Wayne Bennett. And maybe he might be just the fall guy in between. I don't know. He's kind of looking like that right now. But for the Rabbitohs to not even make the 8 over the Raiders with a minus 137 points differential, and even to say as well, the Roosters, right, who had an awful tumultuous season, minus 24 points differential. The Rabbitohs still had a plus 59, but had one less win than both of those guys. And you're just like, well, how is that possible when you were first after 11 rounds? This team is confusing. This team is incredibly confusing, but they have the talent. It's not like this team does not have the talent. Latrell Mitchell, Origin, International. Alex Johnston potentially could be the highest try scorer of all time post this season. Isaiah Tass, very solid. Obviously, Jack White will come in there, which is an Origin representative. Campbell Graham should be an Origin representative, to be fair, and was one of the best players in the competition last year. Tyrone Munro, absolute speedster, maybe lacking a little bit defensively, but he's a young guy, so you give him that time. Cody Walker, Origin representative. We saw how incredibly he played for New South Wales in Game 3. What's happening right now with the Rabbitohs in regards to that? Because all well and good to play at Origin like that in one game that didn't really mean anything overall, but Cody Walker is an Origin representative. Lachlan Ilias, big year for him. I'm not going to say that he's incredible right now because there is a lot of question marks. Tavita Totola and Sean Kepi. It's a bit of a middle of the pack front row pairing for my personal opinion. However, it's still a front row pairing that probably should get into the top 8. It probably should. There is better front row pairings, but it's still great. Damien Cook, Origin representative. Keon Kalamatangi and Jai Arrow, Origin representatives. Right, Cameron Murray, International. Origin and International. Saliva Havili, International for Tonga. Tom Burgess, International for England. Davy Mawali and Tallis Duncan, young lads, really coming on the up, right? Especially Tallis Duncan. So, this team has so much talent. It has so much talent. And it's like, I want to go and predict them to win the comp again, but I can't trust them after they hurt us last year. But where do you put them? You know, where do you put them? The trajectory is going down. The trajectory is not stable. It's not stagnant. It's going down from what I've just explained to you, right? And unless you think that Jack Whiten is going to revolutionise this team from the centres, and then obviously maybe once Cody Walker retires, I think he's in his early 30s now, 32, 33, once he retires, then Jack Whiten probably goes into that 5'8 department. But unless you think, because that could just be a much of a muchness, you know what I'm saying? It could be just much of the same, realistically. So unless you think Jack Whiten is going to be the revolutionary player that changed this team around, this team could still be in the same position. I don't think they can be lower, but I did not think that they could finish 9th this year. I did not think it. So, you know, this team is in a real weird spot. And I will say, just lastly here, because we'll finish it up now, but just lastly, Latrell Mitchell. I think there's question marks being raised around him and fullback as well. You know, there's a lot of fullbacks right now that are having question marks raised about them. But I think that, you know, Trell, when he was playing centre for the Roosters, was the best centre in the game. He was one of the best centres in the game, best players in the game. He was the best centre for mine. I still to this day will say that when he plays centre, he's the best centre in the game. But you can't move into the centres right now because you've got Campbell Graham, you've got Jack Whiten, you've got Isaiah Tuss. They've got, you know, plenty of guys there. It just doesn't really kind of correlate to moving him elsewhere. But is he the fullback you guys need right now? Because does he do enough? He has those real big moments and whatnot, and we've obviously had our banter. I love Trell, but does he have enough of those big moments to actually warrant him being a top 5 fullback in the game? And it's a question that I ask you guys in the comments section. I ask you guys, comment it below. Let me know your thoughts. Do you think Trell is the answer there in the fullback? But with that being said, what do you do if he's not? What do you do if he's not? So JasonDemetrio has a lot of question marks over him. He has a lot of things he has to do this year. He has to prove himself a lot. Ilias as well. I'd even go as far to say Trell as well. Although he's got the reputation, needs to prove a lot more in regards to the specific fullback position as well. Yeah, look, I think that this team should be predicted as a top 4 team. It should be predicted as a top 2 team, to be completely honest with you. And if they don't make the top 4, I'm sorry, but JasonDemetrio has to be the one that questions are being asked about. He has to be the one, because that trajectory is not looking pretty. But that's my opinion, guys. Let us know in the comment section what your thoughts are. If you're a Salty Rabbitohs fan who doesn't like to hear my version of the reality, then feel free to insult the Titans. Don't worry, I've heard it all before. This isn't a video here to insult you. It is just a question on the team, because I actually don't mind the Rabbitohs. They're not a team that I dislike at all. There's only really one team that I dislike overall. But, you know, I don't really dislike the Rabbitohs. This is just what's happening, you know? Like, it's just your fans deserve better than what's being put on the table right now. So it's going to be very interesting in 2024. I think I will predict them high. They might, you know, hurt me again with my prediction, and then the questions must really come to the forefront and the chopping board must come out, because things simply need to be better than last year. And I don't think any Rabbitohs fan can disagree with me on that one. But anyway, guys, that's going to do us here for today. Obviously, hit that thumbs up button. Subscribe if you're new around here. Like I said, comment below. We're posting every single day. We haven't missed a single day in January so far. 2.5 weeks, which is not usually what I would do. But I'm focused this year, man. I'm focused. So we're going to be daily. So just get around it. Absolutely love doing what I do. And I hope you guys are enjoying it too. So I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Catch you later. See ya.